Good morning, everybody. Well, the election is over, and Donald Trump is the apparent winner of the election. And I say apparent because it's really not official yet, even though I don't think it's going to get overturned. And very interesting about the United States elections, as you know, you have this vote like this, and the ones who actually cast the vote are not the people. It's actually the Electoral College. They're the ones that decide. And there's not any real set rule that the Electoral College has to do, has to vote the same way as what all their constituents decide. So, and their vote is actually cast, I think, in about 3 more days. So it's even still a chance that Donald Trump will not win. That's why I said apparent. But normally, I think throughout all of history, whoever wins at this point in time is normally always chosen as the president. Normally, always, you know. And there is another time, I guess, and I think that's around January. Well, it was not the 20th. The 20th is when the president is inaugurated. But there's a time before that when it's decided within the Congress of who's going to be the president. And of course, there's always a chance that they can overthrow what the vote was at that time as well. It's kind of interesting. So, it's strange. In the United States, everybody was thinking that whoever wins, the other side is going to be throwing some sort of a big revolt. And it didn't happen really yet, even though you have videos out where people are having these meltdowns, these really crazy lunatic people, screaming and beating on things and crying and ripping their shirts and all that because Donald Trump won. I mean, my God. But anyway, besides all that stuff, what are the repercussions of this election? And the main repercussion is this. It has something to do with a video I made some days ago, well, weeks ago, a few videos ago, I guess I should say, and I was talking about an October surprise. And I was thinking, wow, it's very possible the October surprise was the price in gold. And the price of gold really went up quite a bit in October. And I was sort of wondering, well, why is that? And normally the price of gold is, as I said, is normally related to the value of the dollar. And it's like moving away from that now. And it's judged by other things. And in a way, that's the United States actually having a way to control the price of gold, and then investors actually react to that. So that's how a lot of people make a lot of money, because they know what's going to be happening within the government and all that, and then at that time they might put their money into gold knowing it's going to go up or it's going to go down. They'll take their money out of it, things like that. And what's telling is, since Donald Trump won, the price of gold really went down quite a bit. And if you're saying, for example, that maybe the price of gold rose a few hundred, well, I go by euros because I have to get over here. Bicycle's coming. I had my some of my what do you call savings invested in gold some time ago, and with the threat from Ursula von der Leyen, say she's going to raid people's bank accounts to pay for all the refugees and the wars and things, against the wishes of the people, of course. So I was thinking, the first thing that will go is gold. They're going to take people's gold before they're going to take the money out of people's bank accounts. So, but anyway, had to go to that side, that side information. So anyway, so the price of gold went down, like maybe nearly 100 euros, around that. I don't know exactly, because I don't have many money in gold anymore, so I'm not really looking at the exact numbers. But it went down quite a bit, and of course silver went down. Silver follows a little bit the gold prices. And the interesting part about that is, thing up here. The interesting part about that is that it tells you something, and it tells you that a lot of people took their investments out of gold, and the reason why they put their money into gold, I might have mentioned this before, is like it's a safe haven. It's a lot more safe. The price of gold is a lot more stable than a lot of other investments. So they put their money into gold beforehand, and maybe in anticipation that maybe Kamala Harris might become president, and that actually shows you in retrospect that they did not trust Kamala Harris to know what she was doing. And obviously she doesn't. And she's not as dumb as they say, but she's just not smart enough or the right person to be the president. And you know how she got her power, and she's not qualified for much of any sort of a position like that. She was even put as I guess, what was it, the prosecutor or something like that in California. And whatever, as everybody knows how she got that job. It's a lot of people that know her, and she did it in public, with the governor of California apparently, and then she got the position. She must have been really talented. She got a lot of things, what do you say, physically rather than mentally, with her any mental accomplishments and all that. Very, very interesting way to put it, things, and so it shows that you can actually get, you can really get success through other means rather than actually being competent about certain things. Japanese guy up there. There's a Japanese hotel. Where is it? I think I'm not. It's over in this direction, and so he's not Chinese. Sometimes you can tell they're not Chinese. They're actually Japanese. Sometimes. So anyway, so the people, the investors for the main part, they have confidence again. So the price of gold going down shows that they have confidence in other investments. So that's just all that it tells you. And it's very easy to say these things in retrospect, but to predict what's going to happen or why things are happening at certain other times, and trying to predict what's going to happen right after that, it's not that easy. And let me talk about one of the main things. And I don't know if this has much to do with the elections, but there's two main things right now. One of them is that Olaf Scholz fired Christian Lindner of his government, and they have a traffic light coalition ruling Germany at this point in time. What it is, they call it the traffic light coalition because the SPD, which is the Olaf Scholz party, and then you have the FD, his party, their color is red, and the FDP, which is a minor, I think they have the least amount. They always barely get over the threshold of 5%. You're not going to be represented in the Bundestag, or Bundesrat, excuse me. Bundestag something different, but the Bundesrat or Bundestag, unless you have, I'm just getting mixed up here, unless you have like at least 5% of the vote. So anyway, they have part of they're the smaller partner, and then after that, of course, is the Green Party, which is the green light with part of the traffic light coalition. So they call it the traffic light coalition, obviously, because the Greens party's color is green, and the SPD is red, and the FDP is yellow. And Christian Lindner is maybe kind of a de facto leader of the FDP, the yellow part of that, and he fired him. And he actually, believe it or not, he was actually maybe, in my opinion, one of these, even though they're all a bunch of crazy people that are controlling Germany right now, which is the first time that I've noticed in my lifetime that you had a bunch of knuckleheads in charge of Germany. Normally that you haven't, and I can't say that they're not intelligent, you just don't know why they're doing the things they're doing. You can pretty much say that Annalena Baerbock is not intelligent. She's the foreign minister, and that it's pretty well justified based on some of the things she says and the things that she does and her emotions. She's a real nutcase, to be honest with you. You guys already know that if you observe, global geopolitics. But anyway, Christian Lindner, he was one that had a lot more sense, and his exact position, I'm not quite so sure, but it has a lot to do with economics, and he made a lot of economic sense. And Robert Habeck, of the Green Party, he is actually the finance minister of Germany. And the reason why they got rid of Christian Lindner is they were having some sort of a disagreements, I guess. And I don't know, that seems to be maybe not a very good sign that they got rid of somebody who's actually a little bit more sensible than most of the other ones within the government there. And Germany has not, they've been going down for quite some time, for a few years now. And there's a lot of, I saw some newspaper articles saying this could lead to the collapse of Germany. But in my opinion, in a lot of people's opinion, and there's even some people that are subscribed to this and watch these videos, and I'm hoping, Uta, you can make a comment about this because you're well informed and it's very good information. That you've told me in the past. I wasn't quite sure, of why is, you told me some things about Olaf Scholz, and it was really tremendous insight for me. But Olaf Scholz, he was the mayor of Hamburg at one point in time, and he was involved in some scandals with real estate and all that. I shouldn't say these words like all that because it makes my videos look like not so. So I don't really watch my videos, unfortunately. I just put them up on YouTube, and I should watch them because then I should try to find out, things that I say that are not that great and maybe distract from things I want to put out in the video. But anyway, so Olaf Scholz was involved in some sort of a corruption in Hamburg, and it makes me think that when you're looking at some of the things he does and some of the things that he should do and he doesn't do, it might have to do with the fact of what went on in his past. And it seems to be that Olaf Scholz is compromised in some way. Maybe they have some information hanging over him, and he doesn't want it exposed. At this point, it doesn't matter anyway. And I'll get into that too. There's a lot about Germany right now. Very, very fascinating things. So anyway, I was thinking he's probably compromised. And that's why he's allowed, for example, we all saw that the pipelines, the gas pipelines, Nord Stream 1 was completely blown up, and a branch of the Nord Stream 2 was blown up. And of course, it's kind of like a secret that there's one surviving branch of the Nord Stream 2, which Germany could be getting natural gas from. And of course, it's like, oh, don't tell people that. And they're trying to make everybody think somehow that Russia cut off the gas supply, and Russia blew it up, and then they're trying to distract and say Ukraine blew it up, and everybody knows that that's a fake story too. This Andromeda boat, the sailboat, and a couple people went out, but you need far more sophistication and equipment and know-how than to have some people just going out in some boat and blowing up the pipelines. It's kind of a ridiculous thing. The better story or possibility is from Seymour Hersh, and he's actually Pulitzer Prize winning journalist, and so he goes with very good sources. And there's a lot of things I could say about the indications of why that is a fake story, because after the articles from Seymour Hersh were released, Olaf Scholz quickly went to the United States, and then he went back, and right after that is the fake stories coming out. So actually it's just a thing to try to deflect the truth about the United States that actually blew that up. And Joe Biden, if you saw some kind of a press conference, he was even admitting right there in front of Olaf Scholz that they're going to stop the Nord Stream pipelines. Trump was even trying to stop it, maybe with a little bit, better way, and not with industrial terrorist sabotage like the Biden administration actually did. And it's amazing that you can talk about that stuff on YouTube, because there's a lot of truths that you're not allowed to speak on YouTube, And of course, even just because I said this, they're going to shadow ban me, and they've always been shadow banning me. And what that means is other people that maybe would be interested in hearing the information that I'm even putting out, and a lot of other people put it out as well, they're going to make sure that they're not going to send this information to people that watch these types of channels, because they don't want people to be following, or subscribing, I should say, subscribing to such information, and they're trying to, and Google has even admitted, they just recently admitted, as if you didn't already know, that they were doing things to discredit Trump and to push Kamala Harris, into getting, positive things as far as this election is concerned. It's just amazing. It's just amazing how this stuff is working here. But anyway, a little bit more about Germany. I was talking about Germany. So a lot of people are putting out that Germany is going to collapse. But the truth of the matter is, Germany has already collapsed. They're just running on gas fumes right now, as the expression goes. They're running on fumes. And when they lost that energy source, that was the big one. That was the big one right there. And you've all been watching that a lot of these major companies, some people are saying that Volkswagen is gone. And a lot of these companies are moving to the United States, and some people even are wondering, this was all planned out in advance, to get the companies to go to the United States to boost the American economy, which is not really doing even that bad. Even though it is bad, it's not that bad as you would think, because maybe this boost from corporations moving from Germany into the United States, and but the United States is doomed as well, but it's just not as doomed at present as Germany. But all these countries, they're doomed because they're terrible policies. But some of the fallout actually from Trump, what I was going to talk about, I don't think that this has anything to do with it, the firing of Christian Linder, which is actually more important than you think it is. But of course you won't see any repercussions for that for quite some time, somebody that has some sense. But one of the things that Christian Linder was suggesting is that they call, I think he was talking about a snap election or maybe just some sort of a referendum. But anyway, Germany apparently, as the news has been put out, in the middle, from mid to late January, they're going to call a vote of confidence. I don't know if this is a vote of confidence within the government, or if the people can, cast a vote of confidence, which would make it maybe a referendum. So it wasn't clear what I saw in the article that I was reading. But obviously, if it was the people, Olaf Scholz does not have the confidence of the people. The vast majority of the people do not support that government anymore in Germany. Things are really bad in Germany as far as economically speaking. And that's one reason why I was mentioning that Christian Linder at least makes a lot more sense. And I'm not saying that he's so great either necessarily. All these people are Russia, Russia, Russia. And you never know if they actually believe that, or if they're just saying that for not even public consumption, but you're not going to get support necessarily from people that really matter unless you go along with this sort of a deal. Apparently, Trump is a little bit different, in that way, a little bit different. And I'm not saying entirely, because Trump obviously, at least verbally, comes out and has heavy support for Israel, and he says he wants to end the wars, but at the same time he's saying he wants to give more weapons to Israel. So how is that going to end the war? I mean, it's just it just makes no sense. Anyway, he at least apparently he wants to end the conflict with Ukraine, and of course he's absolutely right. It was something that should never have happened. And the United States and the West, NATO, they were provoking Russia, and I think it was a gamble. They did not know that Russia was actually going to stand up for that, that they were just going to sit down and play dead, as they did in the past, as NATO was taking over all of these countries and putting in puppet leaders all this time. But the red line, of course, was Ukraine, and a lot of it is because it's northern Slavic people, the Belarusians, Ukrainians, and the Russians. They're northern Slavs, and there are Slavic peoples, of course, in Slovakia, and then there have, different areas of Slavic peoples, and they sort of loosely feel themselves as part of a family, and that's just one main reason. And of course it's security as well. And then if you look in the past, a lot of this has to do with history. Those people, for example, in the Donbass, Lenin gave the Donbass area to Ukraine, and at that time, which was, you go back, in the early 1900s, Ukraine was mostly the real area of the region that was called Ukraine. They were mostly agrarian, and they, to give them more industry, of course, there's mines and things, as you know, that's one reason why Germany is part of this deal, because they want lithium from the Donbass area. And another one is, since they're, the Green Party, they're closing down all the nuclear power plants, and they want the nuclear power come from Zaporozhye, and that was part of the agreement. A lot of people will not talk about it. I'm probably one of the very few people that talk about a lot of these points on videos and things like that. So, you get information, and, I was an honor graduate in history, and my main area was German history, certain aspects of German history. And so, and I had a different experience. So a lot of these people that make videos, we all have different experiences. And, I'm trying to impart a lot of these things in the videos. So, that will maybe give you additional information, so you can maybe know things and figure things out, but, maybe what's going to happen in the future based on that information too. So, But anyway, Lenin gave that area of the Donbass area to the region called Ukraine, and it was the Soviet Union at that time, not really countries. It's a little bit loosely, maybe like the United States, anyway, at that time. And then there was the region, or the part of Russia also, that was the Crimea. And Khrushchev, I think it was 1979, he gave that to Ukraine. And most of the time, people weren't really that concerned, because it was all the Soviet Union at that time, so to speak, one country. But if it wasn't, if it was similar to what it is like today, of course there would have been a rebellion. And then Stalin, of course, gave a lot of regions to areas. Like, he was from Georgia, so he gave South Ossetia and Abkhazia to Georgia. And all these things, when the Soviet Union ended, that was it was kind of inevitable that there would be some sort of a clash, between like cultures and things like that. And the United States, of course, their goal is to create chaos. What was Nietzsche saying? Out of chaos comes order. And of course, a lot of times in Judaism, they believe in this same sort of a deal here, that they can make tremendous gains when there's a chaos, and then they maybe set things up a little bit in the beginning, and then they can just kind of move in, and it makes it very easy for them to get their own gains. And a lot of that obviously is based on what they're doing in there. And so, I mean, as you watch these political games, and of course that was 2008 with this short little problem here that happened between Georgia and Russia. And it's amazing now that the Georgians, they don't want to be anti-Russian. It doesn't mean they want to be pro-Russian. I've said that before. So the party that actually won, the Georgia Dream Party, just a week or so ago, is not necessarily, and they're not really pro-Russian. They're just not anti-Russian. And the United States, through NATO and all that, their goal obviously is to set up governments that are anti-Russia. And it's just, they were successful obviously with Latvia and Estonia and Lithuania and Poland, and obviously what's existing now in Ukraine. And it's not that Zelensky was necessarily anti-Russian at the very beginning, or at least he didn't win the election with that promise, but it's turned out to be that way. It's like a hate Russia party. And it wasn't that difficult to do that in Ukraine, because they had this even going back even before World War II, there was this nationalistic, it was very small before World War II, and then of course it was expanded with Stefan Bandera, and it was this I don't know, this nationalistic sort of a opinion, which is in truth Nazism, and this party, I think it was called the OAN, I don't remember, but anyway, they're more Nazis than Adolf Hitler, to be honest with you. Maybe they weren't called Nazis, but you have to look at this, and these are ideologies, and maybe they don't even call them at that time ideology. It's just like what's going on in Israel right now. And I don't like to say fascism, because fascism is actually a different thing, and I've mentioned that in a lot of videos. Fascism is actually more of an economic philosophy. It's supposed to fit into socialism. And Mussolini, of course, started, the first fascist party in Italy was in 1919, and he was a socialist. So it's like, oh, well, wait a minute. Socialism, that's far left. Fascism, that's far right. So how can that be? Obviously, it's fitting together. And you don't have to be, like a far right or far left, because they call Donald Trump a fascist, but they also call him far right. And so, well, why is it that the real fascists were always to the left? And who was the leader of Germany, and what was the name of his party? It was a socialist. The National Socialist Party. That was Adolf Hitler's party. So, and he was a socialist as well. So it's all confusing things, But fascism, the way that you'll keep it straight is fascism. It was, as Mussolini described it, it's the marriage of corporate money to government power. And as a lot of people probably think I'm playing a broken record. I say that a lot, but I have to reiterate that in these videos, and that's the original definition of fascism. And now they seem to have morphed it into something else, and it has to have something to do with your ethnicity and all that sort of stuff. and you're kind of even forced to play along with that and to say like that's fascism as well, because it starts with an F, and it sounds like the F word and sounds really nasty. So you're a lot of times maybe compelled to try to say it in that way. But anyway, I get myself on these tangents, But anyway, well, what was I even talking about? I should put this on pause and try to get my thoughts back before I got back off onto this tangent. But mostly talking about the election fallout was my goal, and I'm not saying that like I said, that this firing of Christian Lindner it has anything to do with Donald Trump, because I don't think it really does, nothing whatsoever. But there's still a lot of other things I got to talk about. Also, Yoav Gallant, I guess Israel fired him. That was the defense minister, and I don't know what that has to do with anything at all either, really. I think it's just to shake things up. Israel's going through some big problems right now too. Germany has got some really big problems right now, and these people, they don't seem to realize it's based on their own stupidity and their stupid policies. They're just a bunch. It's like a bunch of idiots, and obviously Netanyahu. This guy, I'll tell you what, this guy, he's frightening. I think I might have mentioned as well that he was like psychoanalyzed by somebody, personally, and a lot of people are saying that this guy killed himself because, that Netanyahu is so very extreme, and I don't know if that's true. That was maybe just a rumor, but it's very obvious that there's something really, really, really wrong with this guy, and that this guy, is really power mad. And a lot of people are making all these things, like somebody said, Trump is like Adolf Hitler. But I'll tell you what, there's maybe a leader, I was just talking about him, and I don't know if I could say it on here, but he's far beyond Adolf, and Adolf had some craziness, of course, in a lot of areas, but it's nothing like what they're trying to tell you about, in truth in the real media. So you want to be truthful, and but you don't want to sound like you're making excuses for people. So I don't know, I got to be careful about that. But what else is happening? They're calling a meeting. What was that called? I even wrote that down. Let me see if I can see that on my paper. It's an emergency meeting from the European Union. Strangely enough, it's in Budapest. Yes, it's called the Budapest Summit, I guess. An emergency summit, and it started, I guess, today, and it will be also going tomorrow. So, and this is actually big news, because it's an emergency summit, because they're wondering what they're going to do now that Donald Trump has been elected the president of the United States. So in a way, that actually tells you that in a lot of ways that does matter, who's going to be president. In some ways it doesn't matter, in some ways it does. Technically speaking, if Donald Trump says he wants to end the wars, like such as what's going on in Ukraine, he should be able to do that, because he's supposed to be the commander-in-chief, even though technically, or at least doesn't appear that the United States is involved in that, but of course it is involved in that. But in what way can Donald Trump influence that? Well, they have mercenaries over there in the United States. I was connected with units in the United States Army, and I'll tell you, things are not, as they seem. For example, there was soldiers in Iraq, months before the Iraq war started. I know that because they were in my unit. A lot of them were in my unit. They were deep inside of Iraq, and they were storming bunkers and things like that, months before the war started. And the Iraqi people, the military, were so badly armed that all those people, they just gave up. So they took these bunkers. So they were deep inside of Iraq, and a lot of that information about Iraq is all fake anyway. So there's nothing really true about the causes of the war and everything, and it's all documented fact. Some people should actually talk about. Maybe I'll do a video talking more about that as well. How that he was provoked to. Saddam Hussein, he was provoked into doing what he did, and even a lot of the information after that, it was fake information anyway afterwards. incubators, throwing babies out of incubators, stuff like that. You guys already know that. And who was it? This Jessica Lynch, I guess? The rescue of Jessica Lynch, that she was captured, and they filmed it, and the Americans went in and rescued her from a hospital. And I think she even came out and admitted that. And was she killed or something? Just like the SEAL team supposedly that killed Osama bin Laden. So much fake stuff, you just cannot believe it. No, in American news and all that. So you don't really know what to believe, but a lot of it comes out, and you know that it's fake, because it turns out the real information comes out, and it's done for certain purposes, like Obama killed Osama bin Laden to get reelected or something. And but they had to dump his body in the ocean within 24 hours to comply with Islamic law. Makes you wonder, well, when somebody dies in the desert, Muslims, what do? Put them on express camel to get them to the ocean, to dump their body in the ocean for Islamic law? And then you find out there is no such Islamic law that the body has to be dumped in the ocean within 24 hours. I even saw articles in newspapers, somebody thanking the United States because they complied with Islamic law and put Osama bin Laden's, dumped it in the ocean within 24 hours. That's like, you can't believe what people actually fall for. So, where was I at here? Just so much fascinating information, and I like putting this stuff out. I like learning this stuff, and one reason for me doing these videos is, to try to, remember this stuff myself, and just the amazement of actually telling somebody that this stuff is really happening. This is some really crazy stuff. There's a lot of crazy things going on in the world, as you know. So what else happened? Okay, this Budapest summit, and apparently a lot of this is supposed to be about a trade war. They're trying to see what will happen if Donald Trump sets up some kind of a trade war with Europe. And it makes you wonder, well, what the heck? First the United States blows up that pipeline, and of course that has huge repercussions throughout all of Europe, not just Germany alone. So and then all these corporations going to the United States, and it makes you really wonder, well, what else worse could happen? And it's very weird that they're having this meeting in Budapest, because that's in Hungary, and Orban does not play along with a lot of the stupidity and this craziness from the rest of the EU. There's Fico of Slovakia, and and there's Viktor Orban, Robert Fico and Viktor Orban, and these guys are intelligent. They have brains, and they're brave enough to speak out. So why would this be in Budapest? Because Orban obviously is going to be having to take part in that. So, and he's sensible. So maybe they're coming to their senses. Who knows? That would be interesting to find out. So what else? There was other information. Okay, what was this? Let me think a little bit. I'll just show you the leaves while I'm maybe trying to think. This is the Japanese hotel I was talking about, by the way. At least I believe I was told that. I was there like a year ago. I walked by here in a video. So what else? There's news. I talked about Israel already, and they're continuing the bombing and things, and they bomb Syria every couple of weeks as well. And who knows? Is Iran going to carry through with some kind of an attack on Israel as a retribution for Israel's attack on Iran? Who knows? But now that Donald Trump has been elected, Iran would have to do this before Donald Trump takes office, because Donald Trump, for some odd reason, he has some sort of a hatred of Iran too. A lot of Americans, sadly enough, have this imprinted in them, maybe from the Jimmy Carter days of the hostages and all that sort of stuff, and the secret deal that Ronald Reagan made, to get the hostages back. I mean, you guys can look all that stuff up on your own. Otherwise these videos would be like hours long, and but that's kind of a trickery back then as well. But I liked Ronald Reagan, to be honest. Even though his, all of these people, their foreign policy is quite bad. On one side, Obama didn't have such bad foreign policy, except for the fact that that he was a big warmonger. He started more wars than any president in my lifetime. So, you know, I guess I would say it's not his foreign policy, but maybe it's his foreign relations. You know, he had you know, some sort of support from a lot of the allied countries and all. And I don't know, was it that bad with Russia back then? So who knows? I can't remember back how bad that was, but it can't be worse than under Biden. Biden, obviously, he had mental problems anyway. You know, they said cognitive things, but he's also got mental problems as well, as you know. A lot of these people do. So it makes you really wonder, is that a prerequisite to be a leader of the West? You know, having a mental problem? And there's some really crazy people. And, you know, you think when you're voting for somebody, they got to have a high level of intelligence. And that's really not the case anymore. It's just unbelievable. You know, and a lot of people even think that both Harris and Trump are idiots. But, you know, they're not idiots, not even Harris. You know, it's just that he's not that competent. And Donald Trump, he kind of talks like he's not competent, but he actually is competent. You have to have, you know, it's basic. If you have some of the basic, if you go by a lot of the basic principles of economics and things, you know, you're going to be pretty well off. Sometimes you know, the details are very important, but you have to be steering your country in the right direction, you know, with some basic economic principles. And Donald Trump, at least he follows those, you know, and he's got some big flaws in his foreign policy, obviously. You know, he still wants to be provoking Iran, apparently. You know, I think he might have ironed out any kind of difficulties with North Korea, so maybe that's going to quiet down. Maybe that is. And, you know, North Korea now has an alliance with Russia, so that could be a problem. You never know in the future. Donald Trump says, oh, he doesn't want to start wars, he wants to end wars. Well, he didn't start wars when he was a president, which was very amazing. And if you want to be honest, well, Biden didn't start any new wars either. He just kept the old ones going as much as he possibly could. Donald Trump was trying to end that war in Syria. He did kind of end the war, kind of, you know, but there's still American soldiers there. He wanted to take the soldiers out. And of course, there's the shadow government, if you want to call it that, or the deep state, globalists or whatever. They didn't want to take that out. And of course, the United States is occupying and has control over the richest part of Syria, and they're pumping the oil out still like they were before. They were doing it before with their proxy military called ISIS. You know, the United States and Israel. ISIS is actually, you know, controlled by both Israel and the United States. You guys all know that by now. And of course, the original this acronym ISIS is the Israeli Secret Intelligence Services. I talked about that in another one. And I think Israel's laughing their head off, saying that yes, ISIS is in control, and that's us. You know, so I don't know. And you know that everybody's, oh yeah, they hate Israel, they hate the United States. Well, how come they never have attacked the United States? They've never attacked Israel. Never, you know, never, ever, ever. And yet they're Muslim extremists, and yet they're destroying Muslim shrines, killing Muslims, and things like that. And why is it that a lot of them, and there's even reporters that are, you know, at least were honest, and they said when they were, you know, captured by ISIS, that they had British accents and all that. You know, nobody's ever said there's any Israelis really there, but no, it's obvious Israel is also. When a lot of the commanders, it was even put out, because it happened quite often when some of these commanders from ISIS got injured, you know, in battles or something like that. They were sent to Israel to get their medical treatment. You know, it's like, well, that doesn't make any sense somehow. Really strange. And at the beginning, you remember ISIS, they had these, they were wearing these black things, and they had black flags, you know, with some Islamic writing on it. They were made in Israel. That was a fact too. The Israelis produced those. You know, it's like, how does that work? You know. So all of these facts, you know, they should tell you. You can connect dots, and you can read between the lines, and you can find out really what's going on here. And a lot of times, obviously with Netanyahu, you know, he was the one that supported, he had a lot to do with the founding of Hamas. Israel founded Hamas. you know, as a counterbalance against the Fatah Party, you know, which was Yasser Arafat back in those days. So they created Hamas. And Hamas actually originally, they were more into education, to educating, you know, to get a good education for, and they're still involved in that. So they're not necessary. They had a military sort of a deal. It's become a little bit more and more extreme, maybe as time goes by. And Hamas has not been shrinking because of this war. They're actually just as many in Hamas as there was before this big war started. But of course, the whole objective is to basically destroy Gaza. They want the territory. They want to put some hotels on the beaches there, you know, expand their beaches and all that sort of thing. And of course, genocide, obviously, when you're killing children purposefully killing children purposefully, I'm sorry, but I call that genocide, you know? And a lot of people that say, oh, well, it's not genocide, well, you know. Well, what is it? Well, it's obviously also ethnic cleansing. Ethnic cleansing, that's kind of related to genocide too, isn't it? You know, they want to cleanse that land, that what they call it, you know, get all these people out of there. And of course, if those people leave, you know, they'll be happy too. But then what? Israel closes the border so they can't leave. So they're actually there to be killed. You know, it's like putting, you know, something in a big pen and then shooting them and things like that. I guess, you know, they're killing them or something. You know, the purpose of killing them. It's sickening, and we're all sitting around here trying to play some games and try not to notice this. And as time goes by, more and more people get killed and all that. Israel has not made it a secret that they want the Sheba Farms area, which is in southern Lebanon, and of course they want it to reach all the way up to the Litani River. So they want to take that so they can get the water, they can control the water. That's how they originally did that in Palestine anyway. You can read books by Leon Uris, who is actually pro-Israel, and he's got a lot of these novels and things about that. I'm not sure if he wrote The Hajj. There's a book called The Hajj, and that was, I think, Leon Uris. And, you know, he's Jewish, of course, you know. But he tries to be a little bit unbiased, and of course you can see the bias in there. And but they're novels, you know, and but they don't try to demonize Muslims and Palestinians as much as, you know, you would expect. So maybe it's to get people to read those books, and then maybe to make them a little bit kind of pro-Israel, like showing a human face to a lot of these Israelis. And so, you know, I'm not saying there isn't like some decent people, but you know, these people, it's just like the Ukrainians, and it's terrible. And that's one thing I like talking about in my videos, even though I don't like the whole the part of it, is that these people, they're these ideologies, and they're incentivizing people to hate people based on their skin color or their ethnicity or something like that. You know, that you're Muslim, or you know, or your religion or whatever, you know. And even a lot of people in America, you know, hating Muslims, and it's like, well, why? How is that? You know. And if you read a book, there's a book, you know, I've mentioned it before. It's called Every Spy a Prince. I'm not quite sure. There are two authors of that. And in that book, you know, and I was reading it, you know, a lot of it thinking, oh, you know, this guy's kind of confessing some of the crimes, you know, that they did against, you know, Palestine and all that sort of a deal. But in actuality, you get towards the end, and then they start saying how proud they are of being able to make Muslims and Christians hate each other and kill each other. And I think it's maybe outlined in that book, or maybe I added it to it, but it's like to say, you know, like the friend of your enemy is your friend or something. But, you know, a lot of these Zionists, you know, this ideology, they hate Christianity, they hate Jesus. And Muslims actually like Jesus. Jesus is actually a very holy and high person. And I think Muhammad is on record as saying the greatest person that ever lived was Jesus. So, that's why we should hate Muslims, because their supreme, you know, founder loved Jesus. So we should hate them because we are Christians and we like Jesus. You know, it doesn't make any sense, but it's really strange. You go to Russia, and there are parts in Russia where you know, they have a mosque on one side of the street and a big, I think, Orthodox church on the other side, and they even have picnics together, and they're very good friends. The imams, or whatever they're calling them, with the priests of the Orthodox church, they're good friends and they get along. But it's amazing that in a lot of cultures, maybe in the United States, that they use these elements to get them to hate each other, and thinking that the Muslims are your enemies and things like that. you know. And it's even like in the Crusades, you know, it was incentivized to get people to go to the so-called Holy Lands and to go killing Muslims to get them out of the Holy Lands. And of course, it was not successful. And even the Muslims, who was the leader, the main leader, Saladin or something like that? He didn't even hate them for that, you know, and he kept wanting peace. And yeah, it's just amazing. And it's totally fascinates me, just like what they did in the western parts of Ukraine to get people to hate Russians because they're Russian. You know, it's like, well, that makes sense. You know, gosh, I don't know. You know, like I said, I'm really glad, you know, you get a lot of people that watch this video, or these videos like this, and you think the same way, and it's like, well, what the hell are we doing? What the hell are we doing? You know, why are we doing this? You know, to hate each other, you know? And that's one reason why I like Belarus. And it's strange because they do that, you know, the foreign countries, and it's conducted like from Poland, is to get the Belarusian people to hate their leader and to think somehow, well, you know, there's bad things about the leader. And I'm trying to think, well, what the friggin', what is bad? And Lukashenko just a few days ago, he said, I don't know if he was serious. He said, I'm a dictator. And so he said, see, he admitted it. And even if he is, I don't know. He's always admitted that he's authoritarian, and authoritarian, a lot of times, is a very good thing. You know, and it makes you, well, how dare you say that? Well, guess what? Lee Kuan Yew, the leader of Singapore, that made Singapore per capita the wealthiest nation on earth, he was authoritarian, and he was a very extreme authoritarian. And I can even make some comparisons with Belarus and Singapore to show you that Lukashenko is far, far less of an authoritarian. The area where I live by, you know, and there's massive amounts of people going to work. It's a big, major factory, and some of the guys making colder weather, they're spit. So you got to walk, you know, be careful because there's spit on the sidewalk. And I think it's disgusting. It's a disgusting thing. And Lee Kuan Yew didn't like that, so you had big fines. If you spit on the sidewalk, you had some big fines in Singapore, and a lot of things. And people were far more disgusting in that area at that time. And I had the pleasure of knowing, and this is going to be shocking to you as well, I had the pleasure of knowing the financial director of Lee Kuan Yew from that time. His name was Ivan O'Neill, and he's a very high graduate from Oxford University in economics and things. He died a little over a year ago. You know, it's sad, you know, and I would like to have actually done more of an interview with him. He liked me, and I liked him very much. You know, he was the leader of the Greens Party in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. He had medals and, you know, highly, highly recognized, and people really admired him in the Orient, you know. So that was really interesting, and he told me a lot of things about Singapore and at that time, and, you know, the things the challenges that he had, you know, is that. But anyway, to be a high graduate from Oxford University in economics and accounting and all of these things, you know, very impressive person. So, that's another tangent. I go off on all these tangents. Sorry about that, guys. But anyway, I guess I'll end this. There was probably some other things I want to talk about. I took notes, and I never go by my notes. I don't like to look at papers. It looks kind of terrible. But again, I'm just saying I'm appreciative of you people that tune into this. And a lot of you, you know, you get to watch this, and a lot of people are not going to be getting these videos. As I said, YouTube's not going to be sending them, cold calling or whatever you call it, sending these videos to other people, you know, based on whatever other people watch. So, you know, I mean, you know how that works kind of in YouTube. Don't even have to talk about it. It's not important. But so anyway, thanks for watching. And I tell you what, I wanted to get this video because I'm too fascinated with the news, and I really should be studying my Russian, because it's incredibly important that I learn Russian, and, you know, at least to a major point. Otherwise, I'm not going to go anywhere in this country. And I'm thinking if I get this all off my chest, that I can study Russian, because today's a holiday in Belarus, and I really have to do it. And it's really difficult. Of course, he's known as the best teacher in this linguistic university that I'm going to. And it's very, very hard. He says he's heavily demanding, and he's, you know, so he demands his students to do that. And a lot of the people in the class, they already are verbally fluent in Russian. Some of us are not, and we're really struggling to keep up. So just to put that out. Well, anyway then, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye. One thing I forgot to mention, I was went off on a tangent on that last part of this video here, and but what is so I was talking about Lee Kuan Yew and the person that I knew, but and then spitting on the sidewalk. Oh, what does that have to do with price of tea in China? But anyway, like I said, Ivan O'Neill was telling me, even about they would impose a very high fine on people that would spit on the sidewalk and things like that to try to improve Singapore and make it the country that it was. It was interesting, tourism and sandals. Was it sandals? Well, anyway, the resorts and things like that get people to. What's the name of that big tourist or hotel corporation out of Singapore? I don't think it was Sandals. I don't know. I was in the Grenadines, and they have a lot of these corporations, so I'm forgetting the names and getting them mixed up, maybe, because I wasn't in tourism. But all I'm saying is, if Lukashenko were that bad, he would start, punishing people severely for spitting on the sidewalk, And you see, as I'm showing you, Belarus is a very nice country, and the West, they send people. They use like the Radio Free Europe and what is it? No, wait. What's the name of these? I'm getting them mixed up. Voice of America and Radio Free Europe and other things, and these are CIA things, and of course, to send out fake information. They have Telegram channels and all that, and of course, it's always to incite these people to think somehow their leader is bad, and then and they get them, these other leaders from countries, say, such as Estonia and Lithuania, Poland, and all that, to hate. And why is that? It makes you wonder, well, why do they hate Belarus so much? What is Lukashenko doing to them? And it's nothing. They're not doing anything. It's just that these are puppet leaders, and they're told, because of course one of the major goals is to take Belarus because it's strategic for them to take Russia. So it's just a stepping stone. And I have mentioned it before too, that Belarus was supposed to be taken over before Ukraine, but Lukashenko was strong enough to prevent that. So then they went ahead with Ukraine, through Victoria Nuland, which I mentioned of last video. And I don't know, Victoria Nuland, by the way, she still mentioned, it was not that long ago, that they're going to still continue to try to take over Belarus, to overthrow the government here. And there's of course been threats they want to kill Lukashenko and his entire family. It's this stuff is all out in the open, and they've even come out and admitted it, which is really crazy stuff. But yet they're the good guys. That's what the good guys do. They overthrow governments and they kill people. And then it's like, well, why? What did Belarus do to them? Nothing. Lukashenko has been there like nearly 30 years now, and they've been involved in no wars whatsoever. They're not attacking anybody. And a lot of these countries over there, they want to take part of Belarus. Ukraine wants part of Belarus. Poland wants to take Western Belarus. And I don't know, maybe Lithuania. I haven't heard that much from Lithuania. But in truth, Lithuania, a lot of Lithuania used to belong to Belarus, And of course, Belarus, like half of Belarus at one point belonged to Poland. And I don't know if it was the Grand Duchy of Lithuania, which was Lithuania, Poland, sort of a, I don't know. I don't know that much really about that history of this area so much. But anyway, they want it back. And it's really strange because, all these countries, if any other part of another country at any one point in time, even if it was a very short time, had ever belonged to them, then they all want it back. And they want to go back and take it, And it's not really the case with Russia. Russia just wants to have stable, secure borders, and they don't want to have somebody attacking them. Ukraine would have been fine and dandy if they didn't have this ideology of hatred towards Russians and to attack Russia. And of course that was, fostered by the United States mostly, through NATO and all that. And they have a lot of that. They're trying to supplant all this hatred in Moldova and Georgia and everywhere. So far it hasn't been so successful in Georgia and in a lot of other countries, because people are, not as dumb anymore, and they realize, Russia's not doing the things that these people say. They're not trying to reconstitute the Soviet Union. Oh, Putin wants to reestablish the Soviet Union. He wants to go in and attack Germany as well and take, come on. There's no evidence of this. Some people are dumb enough to believe that. And sadly enough, I think some people even in Belarus, and of course one way, I'll tell you what, let me add this to this video too, and I wasn't going to talk about this because it's a whole different subject, but there are people here in this country, and it's very surprising. And of course a lot of them are taught an alternate history of Russia and Belarus, that Russia's been attacking all these countries and all this sort of stuff throughout all of history, and it's because, this and that. And some of it might even be true, and some of it on the other side that I believe, which I haven't really, studied it that much. You don't get that good of a history of Russia in the West necessarily. You don't get an accurate one. So I don't know what the real truth is so much, but I'm also, it's not like that Russia has always been perfect angels and never done anything. Even though the United States and the West, they try to make it the opposite. Evil Russia! Evil, evil, evil! So, and I just know mostly what's going on now, and I know that Putin is not this person that they're trying to make him out to be. So, because the evidence is, it's just not there. It's just not there. But anyway, the West, through a lot of these countries, and they even have places, and I've said this also, maybe in some videos long ago, that they have training groups, and they want Belarusians and Russians to go over there and they train them how to do protests, and a lot of it, as you notice, is fake, a lot of this, because it looks like the signs were all made by the same companies and stuff. Like somebody had printed signs, and they have groups, you go to, and you can sit around and you watch American movies and get popcorn and hamburgers and all this sort of stuff. And they have them in a lot of countries, Kazakhstan, and they might have had them in Belarus in the past. I don't know, but now you have to go like to Lithuania and Poland and a place like that. And of course you're trained to be somebody, to put up these protests, and then they have maybe different groups that come and overthrow governments. And I was in intelligence units anyway, even though I wasn't part of any of these types of groups. But I'll tell you what it is. In the United States and Israel in particular, they have two sides of their intelligence operations, and a lot of countries have only one side. One side is intelligence gathering, to gather information and maybe even find threats or whatever. But the United States and Israel, they have a sabotage department. So it's not just gathering information on one side, but it's to overthrow governments and to sabotage things, and that's very clear to you. You guys should all see that. And England, actually, I have to say the UK as well, but I don't think the UK uses it as often, but they're definitely involved in that as well. So those are at least 3 governments that their intelligence services operate differently than most all other governments. Just for your information. And you can, since I've said that, you guys can all, if you haven't already, or if you don't already know that, you just watch how things happen in the world, and you'll see that what I said is true. So anyway, instead of making like a too long of a video, I'll end this one now, and again say thanks, and thanks for joining me, and I'll see you on the next one, and have a good weekend. It's coming up. I don't think I'm going to be making another video before the weekend. So bye bye.